Were you a nerd? Were you a person that was academically sound coming up, or were you just more about hoop?
Hoop loud.
Well, I was a nerd through elementary school, and then I got to middle school. 'Cause I used to wear glasses.
Okay.
And I'm sure you remember back in the 90s, the TV show Family Matters. You remember Steve Urkel?
Sure.
Yeah, so people used to call me Steve Urkel in elementary school. But then when I was in fifth grade, I went to a different school for middle school, and my parents got me contact lenses, which I still wear to this day. So then it was like Steve turned into Stefan. Remember when Steve?
Oh yeah.
So then the girls started paying attention to me when I lost the glasses.
Uh-huh.
So then I stopped paying so much attention to school. So I became one of the cool kids at that point. I was still good enough. I mean, I was smart enough I could get a C without giving any effort.
Yeah,
so
because you went to the science class. I mean, the science school. So I imagine you had some type of academic excellence to be able to be in that school.
You mean in high school?
The ENS, the science school in high school.
Yeah, it was a magnet school. Yeah, I had pretty good grades. I mean, again, I could get a C without even trying. So if I tried, I could get a B or an A. And I think most students didn't even do that. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's just the way it shook out. But I wasn't a nerd from after elementary school. I did enough. I would just say that I was adequate. My parents even chastised me about that at times in high school. Like, man, you're just doing enough to get by. You can't do that. And my dad would say something like, hey, that's what I did. You don't want to do that. You don't want to go that route. My dad didn't go to college. But I was, at the same time that I tell people I did enough to get by, I was also intelligent enough that my version of doing enough could get me C's and B's with my level of effort. Not everybody can do. Not everybody has the same skills. Some people need to practice 20 hours a week to play 2 minutes a game. Some people need to practice 2 hours a week to play 35 minutes a game. Everybody does not have the same gifts and the same tools. That's why you got to know yourself.
Anybody is looking at this, I'm not bagging on nerds. I wish I was more academically sound. That's just the word I use. So it may have been a bad word choice, but just academically inclined is what I was getting at. And I asked that question because, man, if it wasn't for basketball, I wouldn't have graduated high school, let alone go to college and get a master's. So that was my one thing that I had that kind of made me realize how important school was. It was kind of like putting the cart before the horse. It wasn't in the right order. I don't encourage anyone to look at it like I looked at it back then. But as far as you're concerned, when you came to college, your number one goal was what? Was it a particular major, or were you like, look, this is another opportunity for me to hoop?
Going to college, my number one motivation to go to college was by age around 16, I knew I wanted to play basketball for a living. I didn't know how, when, what, where, nothing. I didn't know anything. I just knew I wanted to play ball. And I knew coming out of high school that I graduated from high school in 2000. So I knew I wasn't Kobe, Kevin Garnett, Tracy McGrady. I knew I couldn't go from high school to the league. I needed some more seasoning. I needed to get better.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go to college if for nothing else, to have 4 years to play basketball and get better. Mm-hmm. So my number one reason for going to college was to get the basketball experience, number one. Number two, to get around some diversity of people, because I had never been around anyone but Black people my whole life coming up by age 18. I hadn't been around people who were not Black, except for maybe some of the teachers at school, and I didn't even really count them. So I knew there was a bigger world. Again, I watched TV. We had magazines and movies. I knew there was more out there. And I knew if I didn't get out of my neighborhood then, using college as the excuse to get out of my neighborhood, I would probably never get out of it, because most of the people I've seen have been there their entire lives and they weren't going anywhere. So I wanted to get out of that neighborhood, go see the world, see how other people conduct themselves, see how other people live, and see what are the possibilities for me, whether it be basketball or anything else. But I just wanted to expand my vision, expand my horizons as a human being.
Man, I played college basketball as well, and I played against some cats that if they weren't in that system with that coach, then I wouldn't know your name. And the same could be said about me. I'm not saying I was the best of the best either, but a lot of people get caught up in, well, if I just put in the work, then this will happen. And I think it will, but it may not look the way you envision it. It may be at a different school. It may be in a different environment. It may be in a different thing than what you imagine. What do you say to that?
Timing is important in success. Timing is a very big part of it. My favorite book of all time is 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Mm-hmm. And one of the chapters is Master the Art of Timing. Timing, you do need to have the right timing, being in the right place with the right situation and being the right person for what is needed is very important. I mean, think about it. If you were to join let's say you're the best small forward who's not in the NBA, but then you go try out for the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors, they might not need you because they already got somebody at that position. Even though you may be very good, but you went to the wrong place at the wrong time and you were the wrong person. But then you could take someone, let's say, a good example is a guy like Mario Chalmers, played for Miami Heat. We were actually neighbors for a couple of years. And that guy's not super talented. He's not physically imposing. And on many teams in the league, he may not have had the opportunity that he had. But he ended up on the right team at the right time. He had the right relationships with the right people, the right players who had a higher status, liked playing with him. And that afforded him to be on that team, win championships, get his name known. That may not have happened had he got drafted to, let's say, the LA Lakers or the San Antonio Spurs. So timing does matter, and you can't always control that situation.
It's one thing to put in work at something, but it's quite another to be hard on yourself that it doesn't work at that particular spot. I've seen guys in college that if it wasn't for that system, like say the Princeton offense, that caters to a certain type of player, whereas if you were a different type of player, you might not thrive in that setting. But that's not to say you're a bad player. That's not to say that you didn't put in, quote unquote, enough work. But it is saying that, hey, this just might not be the situation for you.
It's two sides to that. You can look at a guy like Draymond Green, Golden State Warriors. He's a superstar with $100 million playing for the Warriors. But you put him on any other team in the league, he might not have that same value because it's the pieces that are around him right now that make it perfect for him to be who he is. You put him on a team like, I don't know, put him on the Minnesota Timberwolves or you put him on the Sixers, he might not have the same impact because he doesn't have the same pieces around him. He may be asked to do more than he's capable of doing. So let's say if you go to a situation like the Princeton offense, players should be able to look at a situation and say, okay, this would work for me or this would not work for me. Let's say you got a guy like Derrick Rose or you want to play like Derrick Rose. You probably don't want to go somewhere where the coach is running a Princeton-style ball movement offense. But it is each player's responsibility to know what you can do and also what you can't do. You should know, okay, I shouldn't play for this team that runs up and down all the time because I'm not that athletic. I'm not an up and down player. I'm more of a half-court guy. This team may not be the best fit for me. You need to know that. Players need to be able to point that out and say that to themselves, hey, this is a limitation of mine. And I think a lot of players, because obviously they want to appear confident, you're going to get yourself in that mind state like I'm better than everybody. They may not want to admit that to themselves, let alone to somebody else. And then they end up in these wrong situations. But a player has to either have the skill to adapt to any situation, or if you can't, know that you can't and make sure you don't put yourself in that situation.
Speaking back on betting on yourself, man, throughout the book, I just saw multiple situations where you bet on yourself and you weren't waiting on someone to give you permission. I feel like it's comical when I read your comments and read some of my comments when someone is just, I mean, bless their heart, they're begging for permission to go and do what they want to do. I saw some of your comments and one day it said, "Hey Dre," it said, "Hey Dre, I'm 5'0" and I'm this. Can I make it to the NBA? What do you say about that, waiting on someone to give you permission to do anything, whether it's basketball or just life in general?
Number one thing that I think most of the time when people ask for advice, and I'm not talking young people, I'm talking adults as well, you could be 55 years old. When people ask for advice, they already know what they want to do. They already know exactly what they want to do. You just want to hear it from somebody else so you feel more secure in making that choice. So you feel like, okay, I knew I wanted to do that, but since Dre said it or some guy on TV said it or Steph Curry does it, now I feel like it's okay for me to do it. So when someone asks me a question like, do you think I can make it or you think I can do this? My thought is you already know whether you're going to try or you're not. So you're just looking for some confirmation right now.
Almost like something you can blame it on somebody else in case it don't go right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And usually what I say to them is, listen, I'm not going to make the decision for you whether you want to try or you're not. But, I mean, you pretty much know the answer. Can you make it? Yeah, you can, but you also can not make it. So it's just a question of what are you going to do? It's not really about what I think or anybody else thinks, especially when it comes to someone's chances of doing something. It's really what they think about themselves.
But you had kind of clever way of looking at programs, because we got a lot of programs on the internet. Everybody has a program, a jumping program or whatnot. But you said something really clever that I feel like would be helpful to anyone that's thinking about purchasing a program. Can you speak to that?
Because players will ask me, well, Dre, if I get this program, do you think is going to help me have handles, or do you think I'll be able to shoot like Steph Curry, or I'll be able to finish around the rim like Kyrie Irving? So the challenge with athletes now, when they get some kind of program or training, or even if you hire a trainer, if you go into it like, okay, it might work and it might not, usually it'll end up not working, because it takes less effort to not have it work than it takes to make it work. But when you go into any type of training with a mindset that I'm going to do this and I'm going to get results, it may sound kind of out there or spacey for some people, but the fact is, when you go into something with the expectation of it working and you really believe it, it usually works. And when you go into something with the expectation that it might not work, or I never heard of anybody who succeeded at this, or I'm not sure if this is a scam, if you go into it with that kind of mindset, that's exactly the type of result that you're going to get. Whatever you expect in life, you get it. This is in sports, this is in business, this is in relationships, anything. If you expect it to work, it's going to work. If you expect it not to work, it's not going to work. It really is as simple as that. Now, then some people may deconstruct it and say, okay, well, you expected, Dre, for this vertical jump program to work, but I mean, you had these genes, you got these long arms, you were already kind of athletic, and yeah, so I can't deny that. I did have those things working for me, but at the same time, I believed I was going to get a result. And also, I lended the same programs that I used, I lended those programs to multiple other people who could play, and it didn't work. Why? Because they didn't want to do the work. They knew before they even started that they didn't want to do the work. So it really comes down to your positive expectations or your negative expectations or no expectations, which is not a good strategy.
One thing that I like about your story, one of the very many things I like about your story, is you're able to talk from both sides of the coin. For the person that was picked to make it since 7th grade or 8th grade and went on to be a McDonald's All-American, like those are stories that I'll watch, but it doesn't really resonate with me, because that's not something that I can share with my own personal story. So you've been through times where you didn't get playing time. Then you got in times where you did get quite a few minutes. Talk to us a little bit about that one mistake basketball area, where you know that you're not one of the main players, and you know that you're literally one mistake away from coach being like, get him out. How do you battle through that and actually break into the starting lineup?
Well, that's a really good question. I've been in that situation where I remember specifically having a conversation with a coach. It was my sophomore year, I believe. And I came to him in his office and I said, Coach, I see I make a certain mistake and you take me out of the game, but then somebody else makes a certain mistake and you don't take them out of the game. What is that about? He just smiled. He said, he pretty much said that's just what it is. That's the situation. That's where you at right now. And I had to learn to deal with that. And the number one thing that I would tell players, if you're in that situation, is you just got to become a better player. Yeah. You got to become a more trusted player. The thing is, if a coach takes you out of the game after one mistake, it's because the coach doesn't trust that that's an isolated error. See, if LeBron James makes a mistake, the coach knows, okay, he's probably not going to keep making that same mistake because I trust what he can do. If you're getting pulled after one mistake, it's because the coach just doesn't trust you. This means you haven't proven it enough in the games. It means you probably haven't proven it enough in practice. So if you're proving it in practice enough every day, the coach will put you in there. And if you make a mistake, the coach says, okay, I've seen you do this right in practice, so I'm not going to get on you about making a mistake in the game. I'm going to let you play through it. But you got to earn that opportunity. Players have to understand they got to earn that opportunity. And this is the most important thing players need to understand about playing basketball, especially at the amateur level, that life and sports are not designed to be fair. It's not supposed to be fair. Yeah. Like, if you get out of school and you go play a professional sport, or you go work professionally for a corporation or at a job, or even if you start your own company, life is not supposed to be fair. You do not deserve playing time just because you practice a certain amount, or you a certain year in the school, or you got a certain level of experience. You gotta learn how to play the game, so to speak. Playing the game means building relationships, having people have trust in you, whatever you had to do to earn that trust, and you could possibly lose that trust. Playing the game of what some people call politics. people call it politics when it works against them, is networking when it works for them, but it's the exact same thing as relationships.
Yeah.
All of that is part of the game, and it's not supposed to be fair. So you just got to learn how to make the unfairness work for you instead of against you.
Yeah. I've never heard it put like that, but yeah, it's networking when it's working in your favor, but politics when it's not.
Somebody do something for you, you say networking, relationships. It works against you as politics.
Yeah. They put out a video about college, about things you should have done in college and not falling into what you was talking about. You should have went out more. And I definitely agree with that. But my question to you is, as far as potholes that you saw with those that went out more, or potholes that you saw with people just in general along the way, because I mean, from playing in high school to college to the professionals, I'm sure you've seen some guys that took some roads that were probably like a popular road to take, but it was filled with things that they were doing to jeopardize their actual careers and actually their stay in college.
Absolutely. I know several. Yes, I did see many players who went out and socialized even more than I did in college, and then they didn't get the schoolwork done. They weren't on top of their stuff. They ended up academically ineligible, and without basketball, they just crashed and burned and ended up not even in school anymore. That wasn't even the way I was built. I wasn't built that way. I knew the game. And I talk about this also with athletes, that if you want to play a sport, because some athletes come to me, and I'm sure they've come to you, and they say, hey, I just want to play ball. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do all this academic stuff. I don't want to be going to class and all that. And I tell them, listen, in the United States of America, going to school is part of the game. You can't play that game, then you can't play your other game. And that's an understanding that players have to come to. If they can't really understand that, then listen, you can go try to do it your way, and you're going to end up where all those other people back from where you came from ended up, that they told you shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. So you got to understand what the game is. That's the game, and you got to understand your game, meaning, what are you capable of? Do you need to study 3 hours a night in order to get a D so you can stay barely eligible? Or can you study 30 minutes before the test and still get a C and get by that way? Everybody don't have the same skills. And the challenge is in college, of course, is peer pressure. You hanging out with your friends and they don't need that much time, but you need a whole lot more. You don't want to be the dummy, like you would feel like a dummy, like everybody's going out to party and there's girls there. But no, I got to stay home and study because I need 3 hours to get this stuff down while they only need 1 hour. So it's really a matter of self-discipline, knowing yourself, making time, making that schedule so that you can get the stuff in that you really need to get in. If you want to be an athlete, that's cool. Just understand that part of the game is you got to do the schoolwork. Whatever you need to do to get the schoolwork done right, you got to make sure you're doing it. And if you ain't doing it, that's your fault.